Welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is Breezy, and today we're going to be talking about the inevitable downfall of the Rune Blade class. No, in all seriousness though, players out there have been taking Briar to their local road to nationals in an attempt to get her to hit Living Legend status, thus bringing an end to the Rosetta Thorn reign. And I understand, right? Like, the 2 arcane, 2 physical is a huge burden to play around. It makes sense, right? So as a Viserai player, though, I have to start to question what weapons are at my disposal once Rosetta Thorn is gone. And so in today's video, we're going to take a look at the weapons that Viserai might be picking up and throwing into the deck once Rosetta Thorn is gone. So let's head over and take a look what we got. All right, here we are at Fabruary.com, taking a look at the Rune Blade weapons that Viserai is going to have at his disposal. First up, we've got Nebula Blade. Nebula Blade is the card that was introduced to him in Arcane Rising. It's his signature weapon. It's a 2 cost, 1 attack. It says if Nebula Blade hits, create a rune chant token. Love that. If you've played a non-attack action card this turn, Nebula Blade gains +3 until end of turn. Also love that. The thing that I don't love is the 2 cost, because if I want to continue playing my Mavrian Skies Shrill of Skullform into a weapon attack, this puts a big fat no on that, because usually that's a blue pitch, and I only have 1 resource left over after that Shrill of Skullform. Nebula Blade don't allow that. Nebula Blade is going to say, hey, where's my extra resource? You need to pay for this, please. And yeah, I love the fact that this creates a rune chant token. You know, he's got Amplify the Arknight, Rune Flash, you know, some cards that have cost reduction based on the rune chants that you have, which is a fantastic thing to start your turn with rune chants. You know, the non-attack playing that is similar to the Rosetta Thorn condition, so you're getting a little bit of buff if you meet that condition. I love that, but again, it's just I have to start changing my deck up, which is it's gonna be 1 cost attacks, right? So it'll be Mavrian Skies into Meet and Greet, Mavrian Skies into Spellblade Strike. Those are fine on the surface, but at the same time, they don't have like cool conditions. Like Shrill of Skullform becomes a 2 for 7, the red one anyway, and that's huge, right? Like, how am I going to block 7 on a Mauve Skies? Like, I have to throw 2 cards and an equipment, or 3 cards. That's huge disruption. And so Nebula Blade falls a little flat for me, although it's not completely out of the question. And I actually love Nebula Blade. I played it for a while because I anticipated Rosetta Thorn to be gone a long time ago. It does have a lot of fun play patterns. It's just, you know, you can't play the same deck. You can't just take the one weapon out and put this weapon in. There are some things you have to change, and change is fine, but this isn't going to be for those folks that just want the easy swap in. So take that into account. All right, and next up we have Reaping Blade, which is a once per turn action, 1 cost, like that. It hits for 3. It's not too bad, right? And then it says if a hero has more life than any other hero, they can't gain life. Now, that doesn't say when this attacks or if a hero is damaged by Reaping Blade. This is just a static ability, right? So if my opponent sits down and they've got sigils and life gain tools in their deck, and I flip over Reaping Blade, that's a sad day for them. The whole point of Reaping Blade is this is just a quick swap in, right? Like, if you don't want to trade in your 2 cost attacks for 1 cost attacks in your deck right now, you just swap in the Reaping Blade, and this meets that condition, right? Because it's going to be that 1 resource floating. Bam, pop down the 3 attack. The only sad thing is there's no like cool synergies with the Rune Blade class. The life gain, life thing, whatever, it doesn't really, like, Rune Blades aren't known to disrupt that kind of thing. But at the same time, like, if you just don't want to mess around with changing your deck once Rosetta Thorn's gone, there's your best bet. All right, next up we've got Dread Scythe, which if you love your deck right now, you love your Mauve Skies into attack, into weapon attack thing, just throw it out. Just throw it in the trash, because if you want to run Dread Scythe, you ain't running that deck. Now let me tell you, this thing costs 3, hits for 3, similar to the attack value of Reaping Blade, but costs 3 times as much, and it says whenever you attack with Dread Scythe, deal 1 arcane damage to the defending hero, and a hero dealt damage by Dread Scythe can't gain life during their next action phase. I don't know what they were thinking, or what the whole thought process is going from Reaping Blade to Dread Scythe with like the weird no life stuff, like some counter to Sigil of Solace that they thought was going to get like buku crazy or something. That part is kind of redundant. Again, not everyone is running life gain tools in their deck, so if you've dealt damage to me with Dread Scythe and I've got a sigil, like, in response, I could just drop down my sigil and say, okay, like, I just gained my life just now. Back to the card itself, it's a 3 cost, 3 attack, hits for 1 arcane if this deals whenever you just attack with it, excuse me. So it's a 3 for 4 technically. The cost is what really changes things and makes you have to consider playing a completely different deck, right? I imagine this deck being highly defensive. Tons of blues. Honestly, nothing but blues. You're just blocking, and for days you're blocking, trying to cycle cards back into your deck with maybe like Remembrance or I don't know, how Memorial Grounds or whatever you want to do, because you're going to be blocking a lot, in my opinion, and just kind of whittling them down with that 1 Arcane and 3 attack. Just play Bravo and start hitting people with hammers, because this is the equivalent, right? Like, there's very few times where you're going to Mauve Skies, attack, and then have the 3 resources left over to then hit them with Dread Scythe. It's just not a very aggressive card. So likely you're going to be playing like Sink Belows, Unmovables, you know, all kinds of defense reactions, and then just on your turn with your 1 little blue card, you're going to slap down a Dread Scythe and hit someone for 1 Arcane and 3 physical. So in my opinion, I have no idea what to do with Dread Scythe. It just doesn't make sense to me, but if you've figured out a way to make Dread Scythe work, I'd love to see your deck builds or your deck lists that you've constructed around Dread Scythe. I'm highly curious. I want to know. I just haven't taken a ton of time to like tinker with it. So let's move on to the next one. All right, so we're just going to bypass Rosetta Thorn. We all know what it does, and also that's the whole point of this video, right? We're just trying to find a way around Rosetta Thorn. Dusk Blade, again, gone too soon. Rest in peace, my sweet baby prince, because you didn't even get to see the light of day. Next up, we've got Annals of Sutcliffe, my friends. Now, this is the card that's going to break the meta. Now, in all seriousness, though, this is a once per turn 3 cost. Draw a card. If an attack action card and a non-attack action card were pitched this way, create a rune chant. It's a book. It's not really a weapon. It's just the thing that you hold. It's two-handed, and it doesn't hurt anybody. You technically, in order to get the benefits of this, have to pitch 2 cards from your hand, a non-attack and an attack action. So I would follow LSS developers to the pits of hell, and that's how much I trust them. But Annals of Sutcliffe really had me scratching my old dome saying, what were you thinking? Like, it's a book. The fact that it just replaces your weapon, and this was introduced in Dynasty, my friends. This was introduced this year. So they've got some kind of funky plans where this kind of card is going to have some kind of synergy with a card or cards in the future that they release in future sets. So, I don't know. I'm crossing my fingers that this kind of style doesn't completely drag my Runeblade classes through the mud with like a whole new revamping or new restyling of the class as a whole, because this is kind of interesting and I don't really enjoy it. But I'd love, again, just like Dread Scythe, I'd love if you've played Annals of Sutcliffe and you have a deck build around it, I'd love for you to share it. I want to see that list. Let's just move on to the next one. JK, there are no next ones because the next one is Flail of Agony and Galaxy Black, which are both Shadow Runeblade cards, and Viserai cares nothing about that because he is not a Shadow Runeblade. Alright, so let's tally up the available options that our boy Viserai has in Classic Constructed. We've got Nebula Blade, we've got Reaping Blade, we've got Dread Scythe, and most importantly, we've got Annals of Sutcliffe, except that's a book and not a weapon, so we're not going to count it. Dread Scythe, I'm also not going to count because if you love Viserai today, you might not love the deck build that would be required to play Dread Scythe. And I'm not saying that that's completely out of the question. You can't play or enjoy Viserai if he's not played exactly how he is today. I'm just saying if you love Viserai today and Rosetta Thorn is gone tomorrow, Dread Scythe isn't going to be your first pick. I can promise you that. So that leaves us Nebula Blade and Reaping Blade. So Nebula Blade is not completely off the table. I love the cards that are 1 cost 4 attack that Viserai has at his disposal. And so I'd be curious to tinker around with that weapon again and kind of bring it back into the light of day to see what that card can do in today's current meta. Again, if you're just looking for like a quick swap in, Rosetta Thorn's gone. I don't want to freaking mess with my deck. I'm just going to throw Reaping Blade in. Like, that's fine. So I guess that's it, right? Our little glimmer of shiny brightness in a dark demonastery, Rosetta Thorn, is fading away, and these are the options that we're left with. Now, you could always run Talishar the Lost Prince, but it's a 2-cost weapon, and you might as well just run Nebula Blade at that point. And I guess that's the end of the video. I don't know what else to say. Happy choosing. Please leave a like and comment down below if you'd like this kind of content, and don't forget to subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. And until next time, folks, adios.